like to call the Green Lake Township Board of Trustees regular meeting to order on December 12th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. Judy, could you do a roll call, please?
Merrick,
Here.
Biondo,
Here.
McDonald, Biganowski, Kramer here, West,
Here.
and Radke.
Present, we have a quorum. Thank you all. And before we rise for the pledge, if you have any devices that make noise, smart devices, I think they call them nowadays, if you could put them on vibrate or mute, that would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. I do believe that as soon as we sent the packet out, we received our premium for the township insurance. Paul Olson. I think everybody received that via email. I'd like to add that to the agenda. Last item under new business.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda at the addition of the approving the premiums from Paul Olson under new business.
Second.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by West, to approve the agenda with the addition of our insurance premium. Last item under new business. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which contains minutes of November 14th, 2023, treasurer's report and bills. Is there any member, the purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. The calendar contains minutes again, November 14th, 2023, treasury report, bills. Is there any member of the public that wishes to remove any item? Any member of staff? Any member of this board? I mean, the minutes were very long. With that, I'd entertain a motion to take action on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by West, supported by Baganowski to approve the consent. Oh, Kramer, sorry. Sorry. To approve the consent agenda is presented. Roll call.
Biondo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Kramer, yes, Biganowski.
Yes.
Merrick,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yeah.
And Radke.
Yes. Carries and is considered adopted. Thank you. Next item is declaration of conflict of interest. Will this board have any conflict of interest with any items on our agenda? Hearing none. Move on to reports. Before we get to the listed report, I see we have a sheriff deputy, our community police officer here. I'd like to see if I can get him up, and in the event he is called out.
He looks much older with that beard.
Well, thank you. And hopefully I'll win the best spirit award at the forum. That'll be forthcoming. This last month, we've handled 13 citations out here, 15 total crashes. And then I had 35 various complaints out here. From last meeting, when I talked about the silver truck on Diamond Park Road that approached a young child at a property. Ended up figuring out who that person was, and it was determined that there was nothing criminal with that, so that what was spread all over social media, that case has been pretty much solved, so there's no public threat or safety concern with this individual. So that's pretty much all I have.
Do we have any questions of Mark or Deputy Nofke? My apologies, sir.
That's it.
You're not taking off like the third of the month or something, are you? You took your vacation before, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, it's coming into holiday season, I'll be around.
Get that juicy overtime?
He'll be around.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next, I see we have our Emergency Services Director and Fire Chief, Daryl Case. He has his written reports in our packet. Do you have anything that you would like to highlight or add to, sir?
So first one is, and Joe's not here tonight, but Joe Miracle did pass, completed his instructor coordinator for EMSIC. So he's testing out for that. So congratulations to Joe. Over last week, we did have a structure fire, commercial structure fire at Silver Lake Auto on 31, and the crews had excellent response and our mutual aid partners. There was a vehicle fire inside the business, and which was contained, and then we ended up subsequently going back after we had some extension into the roof when the owner was still there. So we took care of that. In addition, a couple updates. So I received a demo fire engine from one of our vendors that has an engine that's in process of build right now, and reputable company, E1. And so the price is right. In my opinion, it's $680,000 is the list price for it. And I think it meets, I'm going over the fine details of what it's coming with. It's a standard engine. It looks, actually, it's 2 feet shorter than ours, and all the compartmentry is basically the same. It's got a different style pump. It's got a Hale instead of a Watrous, but for that fact, a pump is a pump. I did check with them because one deal breaker was a light tower, and we can have one added to it, so that price would go up. I didn't ask them the cost of that or what it would take, but it wouldn't stop the manufacturing process. That vendor, who is West Shore, who we deal with for ordering equipment, would be able to do that at their in Granville, where their shop is. So I've asked them to get financing contacts for me. So they have 2 different. So E1 is owned by a parent company called Rev Group, and Rev Group has lines of fire engines. It's got lines of tankers. It's got lines of ambulances that, and actually, I believe our ambulance, Horton is a Rev Group company now. So I've asked them to get financing through Rev Group and through, they have an area leasing partner, and to put contacts with me on both of those. And I told them that we've already pursued local, so to start that process to see what financing looks like and what those options are. So that'll be forthcoming to the board. And then the other thing I have is that we did apply to Grand Traverse Band for their 2%. So the application was due in November for extrication equipment. And we should hear, that's usually the end of December, early January, that we should hear on that. But we've also got the opportunity, if we don't get granted that the vendor for our same tools, extrication tools that we have, has a demo set of extrication tools. The same, basically what I sent the Grand Traverse Band for that request. A slightly smaller combi tool, one model smaller. But they're offering that at a 24% discount to what we asked for. So, which that is $50,000. The grant request was just under 70,000. So, if we don't get granted that, I'd like to come back to the board to go ahead and go forward with the purchasing of new extrication tools for the upcoming engine. The ones that we currently have are the age of the truck, so we're talking 20 whatever years, and that those tools are fixed to the generator, which the generator produces power to the hydraulic tools that are tethered onto that truck. And all the newer models are battery operated. So the technology has changed since that time. It would not be worth the time to retrofit our current extrication tools and their age of the pump and the generator. The new engine doesn't come with a generator, and with LED light technology changeover, there's no real need for that. So, yeah, that's kind of the update that I have.
Okay, with that, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
So where are we at on a replacement schedule that we've had for years for the engine? Are we on it? Or
We're
ahead?
over it.
What?
We're over it.
our replacement schedule that the chief before you and you did had it in 2022 or something?
I don't know what the former chief had.
It was in 2020 for our engine, because
Okay.
that would put us at our 20-year limit. And we knew that the frame on the existing engine is not structurally sound. It still passes the standards, and it's been welded and it's, been approved, but we know it's on its last leg. We had specs from 3 different companies back in 2019, of which I think one was still hanging on the wall in the old common area room. And those prices were in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $780,000. So, and we've
But
been,
the schedule you put together had an engine prior to 2023?
Yeah, we're at where we need to be. I mean, our engine, we just paid the last payment on the tanker this budget year. So the tanker's paid for and ours in full now, and we're at that point where the engine is due now.
I know we made you put together a schedule for all the equipment, including engines and the ambulances, and everything, didn't we? So we know what to sock away. I just don't remember what it said for engines.
yeah, that was in 21, because it was running behind for a spec engine 27 months.
Yeah, they're
Give or
about
take.
2 years out right now.
Yeah, in that regards there. And we applied to the state FEMA grants on
Was.
twice through Chief Case and twice before that. And we just need to bite the bullet. And so I did make a request of Chief Case to keep investigating and get the specs, and he's been diligently pursuing that aspect. And the extrication equipment is the same age and has a tethered program, or a tether that can only go out so far. And there's been some occasions where they need to get in the giggly weeds a little deeper and the tether won't reach. So with that, Chief Case has been scrubbing the bushes and working with other communities that are also looking for new engines. I believe you worked with Peninsula.
Yeah, they put one on order. I think their price tag on theirs is just under 900,000. And Whitewater, I believe, just went with a commercial, a lot like our pumper tanker. They were a commercial chassis on a Freightliner. And theirs was, I believe, right at about 500,000. So there's a noticeable difference between a commercial and a custom chassis, but crash rating, which we never want to get into, but they're better on a commercial like ours is currently. So.
Any other questions for Chief Case? Thank you for your diligence on that. I know it's taken a lot of time, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I don't see a member of the road commission or county commissioner, so we have a listed item, Mr. Mulder of UI.
I will be bringing that back to the office, Yui. I appreciate that. I think I know all of you. Trent Mulder from UHY. We did merge last June. Good, better, or otherwise, I guess you're stuck with me as long as you'll have me. So can't get rid of me as part of the merge, unfortunately. But so I'll be going through the audit tonight, touching on some highlights. If you have any questions as we're going, let me know. We'll take them as we go. With that, we'll get started. One of the things we implemented with that merge was we got rid of Roman numerals in the audit report. So as a presenter and referencing Roman numeral pages and English numerals, I guess that's a good thing for me. So I'll have you turn to page 1 to start. Page 1 is the independent auditor's report. It's 3 pages, a 2.5 page letter. The most important part of that letter is in the first 2 paragraphs. That's where I give my opinion on the financial statements, all sorts of different types of opinions that you can get, modified, adverse, disclaimed. I'm happy to report that the township received an unmodified opinion. So that's the best that you can get, and that's what the township received once again. So With that, I'll get into some of the numbers. I'm gonna have you flip several pages ahead to page 16, where I'll start. Pages 16 and 17, we'll look at those together. 16 and 17 is the balance sheet of our 6 major funds, and then we aggregate what we consider to be the non-major funds on the right-hand column. And then they all total for a township-wide total. Obviously, the 2 main funds we'll talk about the most tonight are the general fund and the public safety fund. Starting with the general fund here. So how this is laid out is we have assets up top, liabilities in the middle, and then the difference between the two is our fund balance. No real change there. Also, no real change in the composition of the balance sheet. Primarily cash. Of our 2.7 million in assets, 2.2 of it's in cash. The rest of it's receivables due from other governments, things of that nature. Liabilities. There's a couple things I want to talk about under the liabilities section tonight. 2 of them actually, unearned revenue and then escrow payable. So both of these items here, and they're listed about smack dab in the middle of the page for the general fund, unearned revenue, $245,577. I actually despise the term unearned revenue. It's not a term obviously I came up with, but what essentially it means is those are funds that we've received that have stipulations on how they're spent. What this $245,000 is as of June 30th is your ARPA funds that have not been spent as of June 30, 2023. The reason they have to go to the liability as a liability, even though you think liability, I owe that to somebody. We don't owe that to anybody. But accounting rules say that until we have expenditures related to that meet the criteria of the program, we cannot recognize that revenue. So just because that $245,000 is sitting in our bank account as of June 30th, we haven't actually spent that entire allocation of ARPA funds. So we pull that out of revenue essentially, move it to the balance sheet, and the only place it can go essentially is a liability. Similarly, the escrow payable, you have 2 different types of escrows, and this has kind of become more prevalent in the last couple of years, but essentially you're kind of a pass-through or a fiduciary for some of these funds that you're holding on behalf of others to ultimately be paid out for expenditures, whether it's related to zoning. There's some fire escrows that are held as well. But essentially we have the cash and the cash is sitting up under assets. So we have to have a liability essentially to wash that out and break that out. So those are 2 items that are kind of a little different that I wanted to make sure we pointed out. Fund balance towards the bottom section, fund balance. There's a couple classifications there for both the fire or the public safety and the general fund. We do carve out a portion that we consider for prepaid expenditures. So what that means is we've already spent the money, but those are expenditures that are actually for the 23-24 fiscal year. Best example of that would be like an insurance policy that you're paying all at once up front, but it's spread out over, we recognize the expense for the months that it actually covers. So you may pay a $60,000 insurance bill, in January, but that only covers the first 6 months of the year. So the rest of the 6 months we essentially call a prepaid expenditure. So those numbers correlate directly with an asset as well. The rest of the numbers there for the general fund, unassigned fund balance, $518,469. In the public safety fund, we have $501,096. Obviously, has some restrictions on its use. Must be used for the purpose of the millage and how the taxpayers voted the millage. A couple percentages for you. Unassigned fund balance of the general fund as a percent of annual operating expenditures is 32.4%. Last year that was just shy of 40, so it's down a little bit, which lends itself to, I'll get into a little bit more of that in a second, but essentially expenditures went up this year compared to last year. Revenues did also. But that's also oftentimes a metric that I use to kind of track where we're at. A couple of these other funds are going to disappear next year. Ambulance replacement fund was zeroed out. There was only $1,000 in there. We just moved that and got it out of there. It was more of a nuisance if nothing else. The other fund that got zeroed out this year was the 2021 Capital Projects Fund, which is a result of the bond from the funds from the building. those resources have been spent, so this will look a little cleaner next year with two less funds, hopefully. Any questions on that page? All right, flipping ahead to page 19. So page 19 is the income statement, same set of funds in the same order we just looked at in the balance sheet. I'm going to start by focusing on the general fund, third line up from the bottom, net change in fund balance. We had a decrease in fund balance this year of $3,180. For a budget as large as yours, 1.6, 1.8 million, somewhere in there, depending on the year. I looked back, the last 3 years, we've been on either side of a break even of 15,000 or less. So I think the last 2 years we were a slight increase, this year a slight decrease, but that's pretty good to be on, that close to a break even. Basically resources coming in and going back out into the township. So a couple differences from last year. Revenues were up about 200,000. A lot of it was the ARPA funds, 117,000 in the general fund. We also had some contributions and some grants related to the pickleball courts, the statues, things like that had an increase in revenue. And ultimately, the ARPA funding and the statues fall down to the expenditures as well. So expenditures were up about 225,000 roughly. And I said the revenues were up about 200 in total. Fire fund or public safety fund, sorry. Net change in fund balance was a decrease of about 473,000. Big culprit there was the building. We had some costs that ultimately ended up spilling over into that we didn't. We used all our funds from the capital project fund, and we had some overages that were paid out of that public safety fund. You still have 525,000 of fund balance in the public safety fund at the end of the year. So, couple of the other funds, if we flip to page 20, the capital projects fund, as I mentioned, that was closed out. So you can see zero income in the 2021 capital projects fund. We used the rest of the remaining resources there, which was about 567,000. Again, that's on the building. So, the other fund there with a little bit of activity is the 2021 debt service fund. So we've got debt that's being used to pay for the building. Revenues coming in, and the tax revenue coming in there currently is exceeding the principal and interest payments by a little bit there. So in pretty good shape there, building a little bit of resources to help pay that debt off in the future. So any questions on page 19 or 20?
Yeah, on 19.
Yeah.
The indication of some of the public safety funds.
Mm-hmm.
It was a $3.9 million EMS fire station.
Yep.
Building. We had saved enough money in our public safety fund. So we allocated X amount of dollars for a down payment, as you will. So we only needed to go for a bond of 3.2 million, of which we got 3.175 million after we paid the fees.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that it was planned for that expenditure with that savings or whatever you call it, I guess,
Yep.
capital
There were
funds.
some
So
funds there. Then there was also some funds related to a donation that the township had received several years back that were used also this year to help pay for that. I think it was
Cornelli Trust Fund
Yep.
of 157, give or take a couple
Give or take,
thousand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. 22, 23, and 24. I'll give you a quick overview here. This is the water and sewer funds kind of combined together. On page 22, you can kind of see what we have in terms of our net position towards the bottom. The bottom section there, you can see unrestricted for waters, 108,000, unrestricted for sewers, 33,000. We have some restricted for debt, which is in the form of special assessment receivables. All in all, pretty good shape there in terms of having some net position to cover that. As I mentioned in the past, though, one main break or something like that, and we've got some issues. So I think it's a good idea to continue to try to build net position in those funds. If you look at page 23, on page 23, we report a change in net position of a negative 17,000. The key point there is of that negative 17,000, 35,000 of it is actually depreciation, which is a slow 50-year depreciation of infrastructure in the ground. So it's not an actual cash out expense. In terms of cash flow, which is on page 24, we actually had an increase in cash within these funds of about 15,000 this year, which is similar, well, not quite similar to where we at last year. We had some infrastructure payments last year as we were building part of the system on Bush Road last year. But so yeah, $15,000 to the good, and I expect that to continue to kind of truck along at that rate over the course of the next few years, barring any major expenditures in terms of repairs. So, any questions on that? Page 42, I'll touch on very quickly. Page 42 is actually the same numbers we just looked at for the general fund and the public safety fund. But what I wanted to point out on this page is there was 2 overages in the budget, and I think collectively it was maybe $400 in total. I just wanted to more of a congratulatory note here in terms of the budget. I appreciate the amendments that were made to the budget. I think this, in terms of final budget to actual, this is probably the best budget that I've had since I've been here in terms of that. So I really appreciate the work that the board and Marv and Judy put in related to the budget and the budget amendments and staying on top of that. I was giving Marv a hard time because I think the supervisor line was one that was over by $300 or something. So I said, anyway, all in all, in terms of being, $1.8, $1.6 million budget to not be over, or to be over by collectively $500 or whatever it was. And that's just the 2 overages of 500. You're actually under in total there. So just more or less wanted to point that out. 43 through 46, these are our non-major funds, and I'll just touch on a few of the ones that had a little bit more activity. Did spend some money out of the Metro Fund and the PEG revenue funds this year, which is always good if we can find allowable uses for those funds. Metro needs to be spent on roads and right-of-ways. So anytime you can use those on certain expenditures, take a little pressure off the general fund, I think that's a good idea. The Fire Capital Project Fund, which was the Cornelli Trust Fund that Marv mentioned, obviously that got zeroed out. We showed a transfer on that of $161,433 that came out of there to zero that out. So the other one that I wanted to mention is on page 45 on the far right-hand column. We did have the Village of Interlochen Special Assessment Fund, which we talked at length about last year, if you recall. We did have to transfer in from the general fund $7,982 to keep that at zero. And I anticipate that we'll have another transfer in there over the next 2 years as that debt becomes finally paid off. So 47 and 48 are your DDA statements. The DDA had an increase in fund balance this year of $13,460. Tax revenues continue to increase, therefore the capture amount increases, and the tax, I think the DDA probably spent more money than they've spent in any other year, but still had an increase in fund balance this year. So sitting in a pretty good spot with the DDA. Any questions on the numbers before I talk about the letters real quick, and then I'll get out of here.
Gary?
Page
Yeah.
4,
Page 4, yes.
financial highlights, the first paragraph there. It shows that our township, we exceeded liabilities by $6,528. I couldn't scope that out through here. I kept looking and trying to figure out where it would show.
Yep, so
And-
I can tell you where that's actually gonna be on page 14. So what that number actually represents, Sherry, is for governmental accounting, we're required to do what we consider to be full accrual statements. And for full accrual statements, that incorporates all of your fixed assets. So all the assets that the township has in terms of, fire trucks, ambulances, all that stuff. And then we apply depreciation to that and all sorts of things. It's not super useful in terms of the board and, because obviously you're not appropriating, you can't appropriate a fire truck or an ambulance or the cost of a building or anything like that. So I typically don't spend a whole lot of time talking about the government, we call them government-wide statements. But if you look at page 14, under the totals, it's the very last line, the second column from the right. Under totals, you'll see that 6.528294 number.
Right, I found it there, but I couldn't figure out because you talk about 1282, 750, let's see, 1,000.
Yeah, the 1282.
Yeah, being unrestricted,
Yep.
and it just added back in.
Yeah, it's part of that number. Yep, that 12, all those numbers added up. So you can see like 3.7 million at the top there or the top of that section is basically what I'm considering your net investment in capital assets. So that's what I think your capital assets are. I don't think that's what they're worth, but according to our accounting rules,
Right,
that's what
according
they're
to the
worth.
accounting.
And then everything else underneath that is restricted for, the various restrictions, fire and ambulance, debt service, roads and right of ways. And then the rest of it is essentially considered unrestricted. So if you basically went through all of your fund balances and essentially added up all your unrestricted fund balances for the most part, you're going to come real close to that $1.2 million number.
Okay.
Dave?
So page 16 said what the fund balance now is 32.4% of what?
Of your annual operating expenditures. So basically I took the 518 and then I divided it by the number on page 19, just call it 1.6 million.
Did we used to get this ratio or percentage actually in the report? I mean, you're giving it as extraneous, not in the report, but we always like to know that number. Did we get it before?
I always give it as part of my presentation, but I don't think it's ever been in the report.
Historically, do we have what our track record is on that somewhere tracked or not?
No, not really.
Brent probably has it.
Yeah, I can get it for you.
Yeah, we varied on how we did it and
Isn't that what got us in trouble with some grants? We had too high of a fund balance to operate where we weren't qualifying for grants because we had too much money in the bank.
yeah, and some of that. So we've utilized it and streamlined our budget.
I would say
In accordance with FEMA.
32% is pretty, to be honest with you, I mean, for some of the smaller townships that I deal, like smaller townships than yours, it's typically much higher than that because they really have no revenues other than property taxes and they have to wait 10 months to, some of the smaller townships I deal with that don't get much money from the state, I tell them that they need close to 100 because they pretty much have to go 10 months of their fiscal year without getting any money. So 32%, I think for you guys, because you have other sources of revenue and the state, your state funding is good. I think that's probably an appropriate number. For school districts, I typically tell them 25% is the threshold that I look at, that I like to have them at. So I think you're right where you need to be between 30 and 40%.
And MTA has a guideline, I don't know what it is. They suggest something.
18 to 20%.
They-
Yeah, but Paul's experience and with our experience is we're not like Garfield Township or something of that nature.
Well,
there.
this is a June 30th snapshot, you get paid once a year, the bulk of your money, so you have to float
Yep.
the whole year. I mean,
It depends. I mean, it's hard for MTA to give a blanket number because they've got townships, a lot of townships are March, a lot of them are December, so it's very hard. That makes a big difference, depending on when your year ended.
Your budget year, yes.
So
So overall, your opinion of the last few years, that you've been doing this. We're in good standing, we're in pretty decent, healthy fiscal responsible shape.
Yep. Yeah, I think overall, general fund wise, I think you're in a good spot. Like I mentioned, the last 3 years essentially have been, by and large, if you, in the grand scheme of it, it's pretty much been a break even for the last 3 years, which I think that's where people need to be. You're not a bank. You're not trying to accumulate resources. I mean, that's your job as township officials, for the most part, to bring in resources and figure out how you're going to turn those around and make the township a better place. And I think you guys have done that. Obviously, from a fire or public safety, I mean, we went backwards in fund balance this year. I think it was planned. I looked back the last 2 years of that, and I think we've gone up in fund balance by over 350,000 or close to 400,000 in the last 2 years in public safety. So yeah, we went down 475 this year. We went up 400 in the last 2 years. So I think that's where we'll end up moving forward, absent any significant. Keep the checkbook away from Chief Case, which should be all right, but be in a decent spot there. So I think that all in all, yes, you're in good shape.
I'll work on that $400 deficit out of $1.6 million.
That's big. So I did give 2 letters as well with the audit. One was independent auditor's report on internal control. As part of the audit, we do assess the internal controls. We do several walkthroughs over what we consider to be significant transaction classes. Happy to report that the internal control systems in place are great. We found no issues with them. You have a good segregation of duties. The only comment in the letter is the same one that's been in there for several years, is basically you choose to outsource the preparation of the financial statements to my firm. So not a big deal. Most of the townships, we do have more than one comment in there, basically a lack of segregation of duties because they don't have enough people in the office to segregate those duties, but Green Lake Township does. So that's a good thing. The other letter I sent was a communication with those charged with governance. Typically use that to communicate just some heads up things. My comments start on the bottom of the second page of that letter. First one was accounting for the escrow activity. As Judy and Andy and Marv can attest to some of our conversations in the last week or so, this gets a little confusing. I feel like the system that's in place right now is good. I don't remember the lady's name that's in charge of giving us the kind of accounting for that. But she has that dialed in pretty good. So we were able to make sure that those numbers are accurate.
I believe that was Alicia, and she's 2 people to your left.
Oh, thanks, Alicia. Yes, yeah, she did. That's perfect. That's exactly what this comment is about. We need, and a lot of times it's, bills come in all the time to the township, and half the time we don't know, what's this for, who's it for, and it's a legal bill. It looks like all our other legal bills. So keeping that straight and making sure that those don't get accounted for as an expenditure of the township, because really they're not expenditures of the township, is crucial. So I like where we're at with that, but I put it in here just as a heads up. The Village Road Special Assessment Debt Retirement Fund, I talked about that earlier. Last page, there's a comment. We did have an issue with some payroll stuff this year. I think that was an oversight. We didn't find it during our audit. It was found prior to that, which is, always good that it's caught before I get there. So that was corrected. We handled that. And then the last comment, this letter has actually had several comments in it in the last couple of years. And I don't have many townships. My hunch is that this letter I send to 75% of my townships goes unread. Is probably still sitting in a box somewhere. But I know Marv and the staff take a lot of pride, and they don't like these comments, and I appreciate that. So the fact that they take them serious and do what they can to make sure that they're not repeats and we have as few comments in there as possible. I thought that warranted a mention because, I know how serious they take those comments, and this is probably the fewest comments that we've had in the letter, in several years. So that's a hats off to the staff. We like coming up to Green Lake Township. We have fun coming up to Green Lake Township. I don't know if they have fun when I'm here, but they're good people to work with, and we appreciate their preparedness and everything they do to make the audit go as smooth as possible. So, anything else? I probably took too long, probably past my quota. Andy's giving me
12 and a half
30
minutes late, but that's all right.
If you'd have been here at the last month's meeting, we would be dragging you out the door.
Any questions of Trent? Any questions of our audit from this board? And I'm going to offer it out to the audience. You've heard a lot of information. Any staff, any questions, clarifications?
They just want me to go home.
Yui, thank you.
Thank you, Trent.
Thank you, Trent.
Thank you.
Once again,
Appreciate your time.
Safe travels. Okay, that concludes the reports. Next item would be public comment. This is an opportunity for you to speak. I'd ask that you rise, go to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please direct them towards this board, myself. Any member of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Lori Wells. Yes. Now you can liven us up with your Pace North presentation. If you turn your attention, she does have a slideshow presentation on the monitor there. So go ahead, Lori.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Judy, for putting me on the deer hunting agenda. I appreciated that very much.
They would have been screaming at
The
you.
attention would have been nil, so I appreciate that. So thank you. As Mark said, my name is Lori Wells. I'm the Community Outreach Director for Pates North, and I have with me tonight Colleen Therese. She's a new member of our team for community outreach. We're growing, and so we need some help, so thank you. Today is our company holiday party, so we don't usually go out and twinkle and sparkles and lights, but we did take the lights.
There was a
off our hair.
headdress. I seen the headdress come in, so.
So yes, so I have a brief PowerPoint. Pace, hopefully you've heard of Pace. Hopefully you've seen our buses on the road. You know we're here in the community. But we felt like it was time to come back for a little bit of an update. Things have changed a little bit, but headed in some growth direction. I want to keep you up to speed with what's going on. So what I want to do is I want to show you a quick 2.5 minute video that really encapsulates Pace for people who don't know about the program.
And cares for her aging mom. Her days were spent doing housework, helping mom with personal care, arranging animal health, managing medications, running errands, and driving mom to all of her appointments. Lisa was exhausted and overwhelmed, and she worried about how to pay for mom's increased care needs. Then Lisa discovered Pace North, a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. Pace North meets mom's needs all in one group. With Pace North, she has a care team of professionals. They work together to coordinate and deliver mom's health and care needs. Her team includes her primary care providers, social worker, dietitian, caregiver, dentist, rehab therapists, recreation therapists, transportation driver, and pharmacist. Mom's team makes sure she has the care, medical supplies, medications, equipment, and social enrichment that she needs for overall well-being. Lisa met with a Pace North enrollment specialist. She learned that the program is involved health insurance and healthcare provider qualifies because of her age, and she lives in service area. She needs help with mobility and transfers and has other health challenges. Mom can live safely in the community, such as her own home, assisted living, and she agrees to receive her health and personal care from Pace North. Best of all, Pace North accepts. Pace North.
That. Okay, so, moving on. As the video said, PACE is a program of all-inclusive care, oops, why is that showing? There we go. That's that one. PACE is a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, and this is our service area. We've been open for now 4 years, started in 2019. We're on Garfield Avenue in the former Health Department building. We have renovated that to act as our day center. So right now we have 187 participants coming to us from all of these 7 counties. So we're all the way up in Antrim County, over in Leelanau, Northport, down as far as south of Wexford County and Manistee, and over into Calcasta, Grand Traverse, Benzie, all of that. So that's a pretty wide service area. So in order to be in PACE, you have to be 55 or older. You have to live in this service area. You have to have the ability to pay, and whether that's paying privately or if you have Medicaid, it's covered in full. You have to be able to live safely in the community, so you have to be able to live at home. We provide care and services to enable people to do that safely, but it has to be possible for them. And then they also, our participants have to be what we call nursing home eligible. And that's when a nurse will come into and do an assessment to determine that somebody needs our help. So you can't just want our help, it has to be determined that you need us. So you can see here on this map of Michigan, we're way up there and that blue dot at the top. We're the most northern program right now. There's 14 programs in the state of Michigan. It started in the 90s down in the Detroit area. Started out in California about 50 some years ago. So this is a tried and true model of long-term care, but it's brand new to this area. So it's something that we're really trying to get out the word out in the community to know there's another option for long-term care. There is right now another program going up over in the Alpena area, so we're excited about that, but the eventual goal is to have all of Michigan covered by a PACE program. So the thing about PACE is that we become the primary care provider and the insurance. So people who join PACE, they come to us for their primary care, so we're their doctor. We authorize all their medical health care needs, and we pay for them. So if they need a wheelchair, we authorize it, we pay for it. They need dentures, we authorize it, we pay for it. They have open heart surgery. Obviously, we don't we need to authorize it, but if they need it, they're gonna have it, but we also pay for it. So all of those EOBs and all that paperwork that people get when you go to the doctor, one visit launches about 4 or 5 pieces of mail to you. All of that goes away because PACE is paying the bill for folks. So for a lot of our seniors, the paperwork is daunting and it really gets them confused. They double pay bills, they don't pay bills because it's just such a confusing process. When you're in PACE, there are none of that. We take care of all of it. So how do we do that care? So there's a care team. Everybody who comes to PACE gets the same level of care that a person gets when they go into a nursing home. But the difference is they go home. They live at home. They don't stay overnight with us. So there's social workers, there's RN care managers, there's the primary care doctors, there's dietitian, there's a rec therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, drivers, CNAs, nurses, all of that level of care provided at our center on Garfield, and also in the home for the people who don't come into the center. But it's that interdisciplinary care team that decides what our participants need. And if they say they need it, then they get it and we pay for it. We provide that care at the center. So like I said, center's on Garfield. We have a day center there. It's kind of like a medical model senior center. For those of you who might know me, I retired from the senior center after 30 years. So I have a lot of experience working with seniors. This is like a medical model senior center. So we have activities going on. We play cards, we have games, we have music, we have entertainment. We have day trips. But we also have the doctor downstairs and the nurse dressing wounds and taking blood pressures and administering medications. And so there's that medical component involved as well. We provide transportation, which is a big deal. A lot of people call us. That's really the biggest lack that they have is they don't have a ride to and from their doctor's appointments. We have 14 buses in our fleet right now. We're all over these areas. The buses are all gone and the map's not up there, but that area. Picking people up, bringing them to the center, taking them to doctor's appointments, taking them to dialysis, getting them back and forth from home is a really important service that we provide. And we call it door-through-door transportation because our drivers get off and go in the house and help them put their coat on, grab their purses, and make sure they have everything they need as they leave the house. We also provide home care, so some of our services are provided at their home. So not everybody comes to the center. We have 187 participants. The building holds about 80 people on any given day. So a lot of the care that we do is at home. Not everybody needs to come to the center. Not everybody needs socialization. A lot of people do, but not everybody does. Some people may only come to the center for their doctor's appointment or to get therapy. Others come there for that socialization piece. So it just depends on what they need, and what the care team authorizes is what they're going to be provided and where they're going to get it provided. So an example of somebody that we've helped take care of, Darla. And these are real people, but not real names. But she's a 65-year-old woman living in a long-term care facility due to long-term effects of COVID. So she was in a nursing home. She was over 2 hours away from her family and had not seen them for many months. She needed therapy. However, her insurance would no longer pay for it. If you've ever had an experience with therapy after you've had a stroke, you get about 14 days. And they say that's all the therapy you get. With PACE, we decide how much therapy a person needs. If they need it for 14 months, they might get it for 14 months. It just depends on how long they need it. She was unable to go home because she couldn't find home care to help her at home, and she didn't have the equipment that she needed to be successful at home, and she was struggling with her bills. All her money was going into her monthly payments to long-term care facility, because when you're in a long-term care facility with Medicaid, you have to pay your patient pay amount, which is all of your income less about $60. When you're in PACE with Medicaid, we don't take any income. So people keep all their income. So what Darla was able to do by coming to PACE is we were able to take care of her transportation and discharge from the facility and got her back to home with all the assistance and the assistance devices that she needed at home to do that. We started taking care of her on the first of the month. She got the therapy that she needed. We helped her get a Hoyer lift in her house so that she could get the care that she needed getting out of bed and getting her personal care needs met. We sent home care into the home twice a day and got all the equipment that she needed to be safe at home. She got all the same level of care at home that she was getting at the nursing home, but just at home with her family. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip through the second example. So how are we funded? How do we get paid? So we get a capitated rate for Medicare and Medicaid to take care of all of our participants. So we have some private pay folks, only about maybe one a month will come privately, but most of our folks are have Medicaid. Most people who come to us don't have Medicaid when they start out with us, so we help them with their application. We actually have a DHS worker assigned to work with us and the pavilions for Medicaid apps, and we're able to get applications processed much quicker than traditional community Medicaid. So we have, at any given time, we're helping about 10 or 15 people with Medicaid applications. The thing that we're finding a lot in communities is that people don't think they're eligible for Medicaid because they've tried to get it and were denied. But for long-term care Medicaid, the income threshold is much higher. Right now, it is $2,829 a month. So if a person's income is below that and they have assets under $2,000, we can get Medicaid for them to pay for their long-term care. And that's a big part of what we do at PACE. So what I'm here is just to ask you to please think about neighbors and friends and people that you come into contact with. We get referrals from the hospitals and doctor's offices all the time for seniors who are in crisis. What I'm really trying to do is reach out to seniors who are just kind of struggling more than they really need to at home. So it's nice to see our EMS and our emergency responders here today, because I've worked with seniors, like I said, for so long. There are seniors at home that are working harder than they really have to. And PACE could really help people stay home longer. Our goal is to help people. Our goal is to keep people out of the nursing home and keep them out of the emergency rooms and get them the care that they need through our program. Any questions?
Fantastic. Sherry?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
made the comment that their assets have to be under $2,000. Do they eliminate the home?
No, so those assets don't include a home or a car.
Or, okay. Okay.
Yep, and we help people, we really do a lot of referrals to elder law attorneys because we want people to understand that now Michigan is in a state recovery state. So, when a person passes away, if they've had Medicaid, then the state could come after your home at that time. They don't come after it while you're still living, but after you have passed away, if you were on Medicaid, the state could come after your home at that point. And so you want to protect your home with a ladybird deed or with some other programs in place that an attorney can help get set up with. And it's not a hard process, but it's something that people need to know. So we do a lot of referring to attorneys for things like that.
Thank you. Young lady here, front row, or, yeah, in front.
Thank you for asking that. We're a nonprofit. So we're not.
My second one is, where does the come into your team? The one that.
How the family, like how, okay, so, yeah, so. Yeah, that's a good point. They're not in the team. The person is in the center, and I guess part of that person, that social network for that person in their home is very important. And so our most successful participants are those who have support at home and the care and have a caregiver, someone that's gonna look after them. We have a couple of options to pay family caregivers. So we have some folks that'll come to us and their daughter or their daughter-in-law, niece, nephew, whatever, has been providing care for them and not able to work because they're providing care for mom or whoever it is that they're taking care of. We actually can pay them a wage to do that. We hire them as a employee of PACE, and they get the benefits that PACE has to offer, but they're only caring for their family member. But they can make a wage doing that and be able to continue to do that, because so many people lose their jobs when they're trying to take care of them at home. So, does that answer the question? Okay, and thank you for asking about the nonprofit. We are a nonprofit organization. We have our own governing board. So we have no private stakeholders.
Okay, Dave, I think you had a question.
So, again, you said this is an alternative program, the alternative to private pay insurance and Medicare, Medicaid, is that the other options? I mean, if someone doesn't.
So the alternative, if you don't qualify for PACE and you need the level of care that PACE
No,
provides,
I choose PACE, but what's my alternative?
as far as paying for it,
Is it private insurance and Medicaid, Medicare system? That's the opposite, the alternative. You're the
So-
alternative to that,
Oh, yeah.
so it's either covered by Medicaid,
not you, not PACE. PACE is the alternative, what program or what.
Going into
financial
a-
method for
going
care.
into a nursing home.
Right, that would be Medicare, Medicaid, or private pay. So PACE is an alternative to private pay insurance, long-term care insurance, and the whole Medicare, Medicaid system, correct?
You can stay home.
Well, it's a
It's
different
not-
program, but you have to give up the first program to get PACE.
Because if you come into PACE, you come into PACE and, voluntarily, and if you decide you don't like it and you disenroll, you still have your Medicare and Medicaid in place to go back into the community, get your doctor, and do everything the way you've been doing.
You're answering my question, that's, you say you're an alternative to the traditional or other ways of handling the situation. Those other ways are private insurance and Medicare, Medicaid system, right?
We accept private insurance also, though. We have some people that will use their private insurance. If you have long-term care insurance, that could be used at PACE.
But of everybody in the community that's in a nursing home or getting this type of care, PACE has 15% of those. The other 85% are in what?
They're in the nursing home. I know, I'm missing your question. Can somebody help me understand what he's asking? Because I really do want to get your question. I'm sorry, I'm missing it. Does anybody else get it?
I know what PACE is. I've been through all the PACE stuff where I'm an elder law attorney sometimes.
Okay.
The opposite method, if PACE didn't exist,
PACE didn't exist.
all these people would either have private pay insurance or be on the Medicare, Medicaid system. You're an alternative to that, which has all these features that some of these programs don't have.
It's still,
Same thing.
it's still getting paid by Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
Still getting
If you're under,
PACE went away, they just be in nursing home. Or at home with home health care aides paying, having to work.
keepers or amount of home health or whatever, you could get waiver. There's the My Choice Waiver Program, that some of you might be aware of. And that is funded by Medicaid dollars, and that pays for home care and transportation and your provider. It pays for all of those things, but you have to manage it. So you have to arrange, you have to find transportation, you have to find your own doctor, schedule your own appointments, get yourself back and forth, but it'll get paid for by waiver. The difference with PACE is that we employ all of those people. So the transportation and the providers are our employees. So as you may know, right now, there's such a huge shortage of caregivers in our community. So just finding help is what's very difficult. We don't have to contract out. We have our own home care providers. We have our own CNAs, our own nurses. So we're paying them and taking care of that and managing them.
Okay, Mr. Caskey, I think you had a statement?
Thank you for asking that question. So what is today, Tuesday? So last Friday night, the Congress actually passed the Elizabeth Dole Act, which is going to force TRICARE and the VA to work with PACE programs across the country. Because it's been a hard thing, because it's kind of like double dipping, because TRICARE or the VA wants to be primary, and if PACE is paying the bill, that's like the government is paying twice. And so we can't do that. So actually, the Elizabeth Dole Act is going to make that path much smoother for us to work with veterans. So we're very excited about that. And that's across the country. That's not just a Michigan thing, that's across the country.
Answer your question, sir?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, Sherry?
You made the comment that the person taking care of the person can
Caregiver.
get paid, the caregiver. Can the caregiver be the guardian?
I think they can be the guardian. They just can't be the spouse. They can't be a spouse, but I believe they can be the guardian. I want to check that for sure, Sherry, so that could be quoted in the paper. I'd want to check my sources. but
Well,
I'm
your
pretty sure.
your competition, they can't pay the guardian, and I
Okay,
just
pretty
wondered.
sure, 'cause we checked, I think that came up just not too long ago. We looked into that, so I think we can, just not the spouse.
Any others? Very good. Thank you.
That you might know, and they would allow us to come and talk to them. We appreciate your time.
Fantastic.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming in.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. For Christmas. Next item under new business is the Granicus membership. We've been trying to work with Granicus for some time now. Alicia and Isaac have been trying to deal with them. We've been told certain things with certain deadlines that have never been met. A brief synopsis is we don't feel it's working. And to our expectations, toward the anticipations, or even a fraction thereof. I've understood that Isaac has pretty much mastered Granicus level activity in regards to Green Lake Township and the STRs, along with Alicia. So overall, when it came up for a renewal, maintenance fee of $20,000, I think it was origination fee of $19,000. It has not met our expectations, and accordingly, I believe the request has been made to not do any further business with Granicus at this point in time, and we can continue in-house in that regards. Alicia and Isaac are present at this meeting. If I have misspoken or if I have not covered enough of your concerns or comments, please come to the podium and fill us in, unless somebody here has a question of them.
I have a question on the Granicus system that we're basically sold on. The thing that I found most appealing about it was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week number that the resident who's got a short-term rental next to him could call. And if there was an issue, they were supposed to get in touch with the caregiver's not right. I can't get that out of my head right now. The individual who's responsible for maintaining, or the management team of that short-term rental. And I have yet to see anything that's actually come to fruition with that number. Is that the status at this point? They're not doing that?
It hasn't been created.
It hasn't been.
And we paid for it. Okay.
Thanks all year.
We have Isaac and
We got Isaac.
Alicia, and
So that was what I found most
appealing.
appealing was that that would be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that Isaac wouldn't be getting phone calls at home while he's with grandma to try to take care of a short-term rental issue, or Alicia wouldn't be getting those calls, or
Mary
someone
Jo,
would be knocking on Judy's door while she's got her breathe right on.
there's a visual.
We had actually bought this thing and when it came to the board, I thought the board was totally against it and all you guys wanted it and begged for it.
Yep.
Based on what was supposed to be provided.
And we were like,
Was supposed to
we
be.
were,
Against it.
you were against it. You thought it was way too much money.
That was a
No,
lot of money.
You did too.
I
Sure,
thought
you
it was
the
a
biggest
good-
one against
But-
it.
no.
So with
Good
that being
program.
said, how it came to be, we're dealing with today's activities. And at this point in time, it's been recommended by Isaac and Alicia not to renew, not to continue the engagement with Granicus. After talking with them, and I have attempted to reach out to Granicus to make a few comments. After my second conversation with Granicus, I think they blocked my number. So I'm suggesting that we discontinue the engagement with Granicus Company and keep it in-house for the interim measure to see how this season runs.
Support. Pat?
Motion by Beganowski, supported by McDonald to do away with Granicus contract.
For the money back? Oh, sorry.
I will make a request for that, absolutely, because we have paid for something that.
Sounds like they did too.
Yeah, so I'm going to use somebody else's phone to make that call.
You can use Judy's.
But, so we have a motion, support, any discussion? With this, I'd like a roll call vote.
McDonald.
Yeah.
West.
Yes,
Merrick.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes, and Radke.
Yes, motion carries. Considered adopted, thank you. Just do. Next item is Planning Commission Board Members Appointment. We have two that have, their terms are expired. And upon conversing with them, they have indicated, they would like to continue for another 3-year term. I do believe we have one member of the Planning Commission that's up for reappointment here in the audience. I would recommend appointing Rick to, a 3-year term on our Planning Commission.
So moved.
You're gonna handle each
Including,
one,
are
you're
you
gonna handle
including
both of them.
Clint Colon, did you? You're gonna do them separate?
Well, we can do them together if the board is amenable to
do them
that.
together.
Could you state their full names and their term is
3 years.
3 years.
January
Rick Barr.
2027.
till,
So January 21,
Or-
January 1st, 2024.
December 31st, 2024. Yes. January 1st, 24 to December 31st, 27. Sorry.
My head hurts.
Yeah. And if the board would humor me, we could do both appointments.
I would agree
Both
with
same terms, Clint Bunday and Rick Barr. I would recommend them to serve that term.
We
Oh.
Link Bundy and Rick Bart to the term previously stated.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by McDonald, to affirm Rick and Clint's appointment to the Planning Commission, terms expiring December 31st, 2027. Any discussion?
and we thank them for their previous service.
Yes. Yes, as Paul knows, can be challenging.
They're gonna get.
Roll call this, please.
Kramer, yes. Biganowski.
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
West.
Yes,
Merrick.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And Radke.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Thank you for your service. Continued as well. Next item is the Zoning Board of Appeals Board Membership Appointment. We have, forgot her name already.
Kim.
Kim Dolan, thank you. She would like to continue for another 3-year term on our ZBA that she was appointed to fill Roy's position, remainder of the term. And we do have Chris Height, I think is his last name.
Yeah.
He is served his time.
After 30 years.
Yeah, he is looking forward to somebody else taking that place. I have not yet found anyone that would like to sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. but, I'm continuing my search, Mr. Caskey. Okay.
Mr. Otherkowski?
I didn't hurt, didn't hurt to ask.
We got some CBA still?
No, we've exhausted them. Yeah, we could have up to 2 alternates. We've exhausted both alternates. So I will reach out and we'll put it back out there and see if we can acquire. We do have 1 applicant that was over a year. So we'll see what we can come up with.
I'll make the motion that we, honor Dolan and her 3-year term.
Yeah, support. We have a motion by Kramer, supported by West, to reappoint Kim Dolan on the ZBA for another 3-year term, expiring December 31st, 2027. Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call it, please.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biondo.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yeah.
Biganowski. Kramer, yes. West
Yes.
and Radke.
Yes. Thank you. If you could pass it on, please. And we'll move on to, the last item, written. We still have the addition of the insurance. Golden Fellowship Hall rental fees. Over the last year, Mary Jo's been keeping track. She does the scheduling and, cleanup, or understands the cleanup and the cost have increased. So she has recommended that we increase our fee to $125 per rental with a $150 security cleaning deposit if needed. Yes.
Do we have other groups that have special deals that aren't this deal?
We only have 2 that are currently utilizing.
The cots? Tops?
Take-
Okay.
So they're getting a discount rate and local homeowners associations, they are. Free.
Oh, this is gonna apply to the standalone events? Not group. Do we have a policy on?
In funerals, or something.
Yeah, funerals, we don't charge for.
Residents.
This is the tops,
35.
and they're here every month. Oh. They pay 35 a visit or per month?
They're here for what, an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that.
And so these rates are for residents.
Yes.
Anyone.
Well, for anyone, and we're to the point where we do have outside people that are renting too.
We used to have a higher rate for.
Yes, then something to do with ports and it's a public facility.
Lawyers.
Yeah, well, so what? Township facility.
Yeah,
We pay for it, they don't.
yeah. Oh, yes, I'm in agreement, just like our cemetery lots. We should be able to do it just like our cemeteries. Residents and non-residents. But what we've found is they'll find a resident to use their name
Yeah,
to
they
rent the
just
hall.
use the.
So,
Mary Jo, we've been pretty busy at the current rate we've got, right? I mean, there's no open weekends for the most part this year. And what are the comments the residents are telling you, or people, let me say residents, and pricing and what we've got, what are we comparing to other facilities similar? Is 125 high enough, or is that not, I mean, is that a sensible next increase, or should it be more than that because of what? I mean, as a
Just
government
for
entity, I don't
residents.
want to be undercutting seriously people who are doing this business for profit. Okay,
for residents only. I think that was Paul's motion, is to approve the increase to 125 for residents only.
But do you want to charge your non-resident?
do we have to rent it out to non-residents?
Find a resident.
And pay them $50, put their name down.
I don't want to put her on the spot. The one dealing. Yeah, yes. Well, it's nice to have it used,
Yes.
and it's nice to have a benefit of being a resident too.
Well, when you figure right now it's $90 for the cleaning lady to clean the whole building. So it's $45 for cleaning.
It's 80,000 for the roof, whatever.
Oh, the pressure tank, it rusted through the lines. And the women's restroom, I was told I can't use an outhouse here.
What if we do 150 for the rental and then 100, and then do 200 for a deposit? What does the board think of that?
Put it in the form of a motion?
We sent it to Brian Graham, say, can we charge non-residents more? He says.
We take the action and ask them.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not.
125 for resident, 175 for non-resident, with the 150?
Somebody's motion?
So moved.
A motion by Biondo, supported by Baganowski.
And then would you say that 150?
125 for
125,
resident.
175, and then 150
for
for
security.
security?
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody understand that?
Most importantly, Mary Jo, do you understand that for the minutes? Okay.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the insurance for township to Paul Olson. Came in right after we mailed out the board packet. It has not went up tremendous. It was a light increase by industry standards.
7%?
Yeah. It's better than some of the 19.3% that were hit mid-state, so I was tickled. So Glenn and our board reps are keeping us pretty well up here that are sitting on a bar plan.
There's a couple other businesses in the area that I know that their rates went between 10 and 15.
Last year was 7%. This year, 7%.
With inflation.
Well, they give us 800 and some back, so that's like 12%.
But I mean, so, after reviewing it, they've got everything covered, plus our new building. I have no issues, Pat.
Wondering if it'd be possible to get our DDA treasurer and maybe our board chairperson bonded, maybe to 100,000. Because, or maybe higher, because that's what we got in the bank, and I don't think they're bonded at this point. And we would pay the difference if there's a additional charge for that.
Are they
So is that your motion, is to approve the Paul Olson present insurance premium? And also to include bonding for the treasurer and president of the DDA at their cost? Is that the motion I heard you say?
DDA's cost at an amount of 200,000.
Okay. That was a motion by McDonald. Is there support by
Yes.
Biondo?
I have a question on that.
Discussion.
Confused.
Andy?
Is the DDA, are we able to get insurance or bonding or any of that for them the way it's set up?
Yes.
Are they a subset of us like the Parks
Yeah.
Department or okay. Perfect.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So aren't they covered under our bond? Because
It
I
could
thought
be.
our bond
Might be the
covered
cost is
all
nothing.
employees that were or officials, because like the ZBA board members should be
Right.
covered, and so should.
Yeah, they're not, the DDA is
Limited
not.
liability.
Yeah, and the audit. Gotta ask, I think.
We do a
there's
separate
cost to
audit
The audit
form.
that we send down to the DDA as well.
Mhm.
We can audit them with our auditor, but make them pay.
Okay, I thought. I'm good.
Sherry, did you have something else?
Pat says at their expense, at the DDA expense,
Yes,
Mhm.
If there's an extra cost.
DDA pay for it.
if there's an extra.
yes.
And Andy says that everybody's bonded. I think only the treasurer, supervisor and the clerks are bonded, aren't they?
And there's a general bond for the rest
Board
of the
members.
employees of,
And the board.
board, X amount of $1,000, but the treasurer has an up,
Pretty large.
higher bond.
Well,
And the
that's,
clerk does as well.
okay, we're with me then. Where does Pat want those people
100,000.
bonded at?
200,000.
200,000?
He said.
Over and above everything, okay.
Everybody understands Pat motion and Paul support?
This 200,000, we're gonna try to get the bonding. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
This has nothing to do with approving insurance.
Yeah, he said he was improving the insurance.
Yes, it also included the insurance with that, right? Everybody understand? Roll call, please.
Biondo.
Yes.
West.
Yes,
Kramer, yes. Biganowski.
Yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And Radke.
Yes. Motion adopted. Next item is discussion. When you sat down, Alicia handed out a general pack of police power ordinances. And I believe, this was back in September, we talked about this. There were some public comments, if I recall, regarding their position on these. We discussed it and we postponed taking any action on this until January. Since then, hearing some of the comments and some other public comments that were taken at that meeting and after that meeting, some of the police power ordinances have been amended. What's being asked of this board this evening, because we indicated we'd take action or look at it in January, is if you could take a look at the updated purview, updated ordinances, which I think some of them already handed out. Did you already get them to Ms. Gasky? Okay. And see if you can get your comments. I know it says by December 20th, but we want to be able to get these comments to township attorney so they would be able to respond with an educated, researched answer to some of the concerns at our January 9th meeting, I think it is. So that's just some correspondence and some discussion. So if you could take a look at it and any questions you have, concerns, please pass them forward. I'm unable to answer any of the questions tonight. I won't answer any, so I'm going to ask some myself.
special meeting before that? Didn't we say when, like a work session or something?
We talked about it and we were going to bring it back in January to see what we have with the attorney's presence.
Right,
Think-
but not at a regular board meeting. We'll do this at a special meeting.
I think the thought is to try and get everybody's input and reshape the ordinances and then have the meeting to make things quicker.
We may get something from I'm assuming that what Mark's thought process here is we may get something put together from all of us responding our comments. The attorney brings together and we look at it in general, and go, this is what
We don't need
what
a
we're looking
meeting.
for. Or we may go, we need to schedule a meeting at that point. I'd hate to schedule a meeting if we don't need it. We may get the perfect document from the attorney, but we may.
So that's why if we can get our questions to them. And then I believe the noise ordinance is not included in this packet because there was no heavy duty discussion in that regards there. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Any correspondence? I have none. Again, public comment. This is a time where a public can stand and speak. I'd ask you to approach the podium, name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes and direct it towards the board. Yes, sir.
Greg Caskey Senior, 11-7-17 US Highway 31. If you are considering a noise ordinance, can you please consider Jake brakes on 31 entering the county? It's annoying to hear those at 6:30 in the morning. And I'm 400 feet off of the road. Thank you.
What energy?
Jake breaks.
Jake breaks,
Semis.
semis.
It's a semi truck. They hit a button on the engine and it cuts the compression. And it's extremely loud. The engine to brake.
Mm-hmm,
I think it's also called an engine brake.
Yeah.
it's fun.
Oh, yeah. Any other
To the room.
public comment? Seeing none, I believe our next item on the agenda is to adjourn this meeting at 6:54.
We can't do that today. It's your birthday. We need to be here as long as
I move to
possible.
adjourn, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting at 6:54?
So.
Piano, support. McDonald, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Only because it's your birthday, sir.
Motion carries, meeting adjourned.